I love spicy things. Ghost pepper. Which is why today we're taking our Power Mystic Color Classic and we're gonna make it extra spicy. Because who doesn't love a spicy apple? Actually, that was surprisingly good. Thanks, whiteboard guy. Anyway, we're going to see just how far we can push an overclock on this PowerPC Mystic using an incredible new device called the Spicy O'Clock. I bet that opening skit makes sense now, huh? So stay tuned. And if you enjoy going to extreme lengths to squeeze out every last megahertz from your classic computers, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. We do a lot of questionable electronic engineering and food preparation around here, so it's definitely worth sticking around. So this is the Spicy O'Clock. It's a genius little device from our friend K-Koba, which replaces a 68040's crystal clock oscillator with an adjustable silicon one. To understand what this thing is going to do, I think it's worth talking about how enthusiasts overclocked these Macs back in the day. A good number of 030 and 040 Macs have their clock speed set by crystal oscillator chips, and to change the clock speed, all you need to do is swap out the oscillator for one with a different value. By trial and erroring your way through a pile of oscillator chips, you could find the highest speed that your particular board would run at. Well, Spicy O'Clock removes the need for you to have a bunch of oscillator chips lying around, and instead lets you just try different frequencies, so you can tiptoe your way right up to the line of what your board can tolerate. And thank you, K-Koba, for creating yet another bit of magical Macintosh invention. Now here's where things get really special. In our Mystic here on the motherboard, we have a PowerPC 601 upgrade card running at 66 megahertz. But that clock speed is tied to the clock speed of the 68040 processor on the motherboard. So when we overclock the motherboard here, the PowerPC chip should also be overclocked and should run double the 68040 speed. Well, theoretically. I don't think anyone has actually tried this in a Mystic before. You know what's not theoretical? The sponsor of today's video, PCBWay. Did you know that PCBWay recently moved to a new factory? Now, with improved production capacity and efficiency, great pricing is even better. From August 5th, 2022, enjoy a 20% discount on 4 and 6 layer PCBs. PCBWay is a one-stop shop for PCB prototyping and production, as well as all kinds of different prototyping and manufacturing. So thank you, PCBWay, for being a longtime sponsor of this channel, and here's to continued success in your beautiful new location. Let's take a look at the stock gaming performance of the 68040, and then we'll take a quick look at the PowerPC's gaming performance and see how much of an improvement we get. And of course, we're starting with my favorite, Wolfenstein 3D, which on the stock Color Classic is absolutely unplayable. But on the Mystic 68040 is, well, it's not perfect, but it's pretty nice. And yes, I'm a weirdo. I play it with the trackball, and I think it's pretty awesome that way. We could try a little 68K Duke Nukem 3D as well. Alright, so at a small size, it's playable, and this is the size that I've been playing it on the Color Classic. Yeah, this is the size that I want to play the game at. And honestly, I mean, it's not that bad, but it's not great. Oh my god, I can't even play. With multiple enemies on the screen, it is unplayable. Wow. Alright, so let's restart into the PowerPC upgrade. and try out some PowerPC only games, which is pretty incredible on the Color Classic. We can only just play Carmageddon, but we can play it. Yeah, look at that. Carmageddon on a Macintosh Color Classic. All right, Mame Street. Hang on to your helmet. I believe that's a double entendre. The sound is weird. The frame rate is, I'd say about 5. Pile driver bonus. Oh no, I just destroyed my car. Well. So this is the Spicy O'Clock, and as you can see, it's a pretty diminutive little board here with some fun silk screening on it. Little Mac with sunglasses, kind of K's trademark. And well, it's pretty simple. There are 3 jumper settings to control kind of big jumps in the settings, and a fine-tune control here with this potentiometer. And I'm just going to use this little CRT tool to spin that around. And then in order to figure out what the actual value is here, all we need is a multimeter, and we connect to the 2 pins in the middle here, set this to ohms, and we can check, whoops, we can check what the setting is. And then using a fun tool by Steven Arsenal, we can determine what the frequency is going to be based on what we set this thing to. And actually, we don't even need a multimeter with that tool. We can kind of approximate what the setting is. But I'm going to do the multimeter method, and I've kind of rigged up some little connectors here to go on these 2 pins, so I can, yeah, not have to hold the multimeter probes. A little janky, but it does the job, and we can see values now on the multimeter. And as we twist this around, the value on the multimeter will change. And as we change the jumper here around, the value on the multimeter will change. But really what I want to do is crank it all the way up so that, yeah, we're going to start from the highest possible overclock and then work our way down from there. But let me show you what I did to the board itself to hopefully accept the highest possible overclock. Per the wonderful video from JDW on the Spicy O'Clock, I have used low ESR Panasonic Oscon capacitors to recap this board, which pay no attention to the funky looking traces there. Definitely did not rip pads off, but never mind that. If you want to see some really great overclocking in detail, definitely check out JDW's video. He is just a wealth of knowledge on 68K Max. And the other thing I did is on the upgrade card itself, I have swapped out the 68 LC040 for a full 68040 processor, which has an FPU, and I've also put a much beefier heatsink on it compared to the heatsink that was on the original LC version of the processor. And I have repasted the PowerPC chip, which is underneath this funky looking heatsink. This guy is actually going to live on this nice little mount here that Kay sent me, 3D printed. Quite nice. So that's going to live here, and it's going to give us access through the back of the case actually to twist and fine-tune the Spicy O'Clock, so we can actually play with the frequency that the computer is running at while the computer is running, which that'll be fun to try out. Okay, so I have installed our Spicy O'Clock here and wired it in over here, and I'm just going to put a bit of electrical tape here to make sure that it doesn't touch, since the accelerator is going to be over top of this connection, and that pin does stick up a little bit. And then the other thing that I did was I tapped into 5 volts on the back of the board here, again, much like JDW did, because I want to add an additional fan to the system since we're overclocking, although I'm going to put mine in a little bit of a different spot than he did. So now we just have to put our PowerPC accelerator back in. And the other thing that we need to do is switch out the VRAM. So we had this stock VRAM in there, but this is pretty slow. This is 80 nanosecond. And if you overclock the system too much, it'll actually become too fast for this VRAM. So there are some aftermarket solutions. I have one right here, which is 60 nanosecond VRAM by Mr. Fahrenheit, based off of the design by Stephen Arsenault. But actually, even this is a little bit too slow for the most extreme overclocks. So much like JDW, I have this very special 60 nanosecond VRAM from Keikoba himself. And this is a lower latency design because it only has 2 chips instead of 4. So hopefully this will allow us to hit at least 50 megahertz. All right, so I have the Spicy clock installed. It's right here, and the spinny bit is accessible from the back, and I have our fan here, which is going to wind up mounted about here because Mr. Keikoba also included this nice 3D printed back panel, which allows access through this little hole here to spin around that dial. And I'm just going to kind of screw the fan in right here and cut this little bit out and have some airflow being pulled in the back and then exhausted out here. So it's going to go over the processor accelerator card. All right, Spicy should be set for 50 megahertz. Let's try and power it on. No chime. Okay, so I switched the jumper around to the middle position, and now we are booting, but I have no idea what the speed is going to be. But at least we know the Spicy clock does work with the system. Oh crap, all right. Well, according to Clockometer, we are now running at 40.45 megahertz. We are overclocked. Not to the point that I want to get to, but still, look at that. 40.45 up from 33. So I think what I want to do now, since it's running, is reboot into the accelerator and see if it really does run at the overclocked speed. Yes! 81 megahertz PowerPC up from 66. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, look at it. That's such a huge percentage gain. 81 megahertz. Okay, now what I want to try is actually twisting that knob with Clockometer open and seeing if we can adjust the frequency of the processor on the fly. All right, I gave it a few twists. It has not crashed. Recalculate. Oh, I twisted it the wrong way. Look, 79.25. All right. All right, I twisted it up. System has not crashed. 83.5. Let's keep going. Okay, so I've rebooted into 68040 mode, and I'm slowly bringing up the speed of the processor. I'm at 45.95 megahertz. The goal is 50, and I'm kind of curious if perhaps the 68040 can handle 50 megahertz, but the 601 PowerPC cannot handle more than, I don't know, 80 or so megahertz. 47.5, we're getting close. 48.6. Oh, it says 50. Okay, I tried to go a little bit past 50 and it froze. Okay, so it didn't want to boot back up until I took it back down to like 45 megahertz. And then I booted back up, snuck it back up to 50 again. And yeah, I'm actually starting to see some issues. There's some graphical glitches. Yeah, I don't think that this computer likes 50 megahertz, and I think that's luck of the draw, really. Okay, we're now running at 48 megahertz. Still graphical glitches. All right, 46.19. Let's see if we can start up at this speed. Okay, it's booting, but there's no video. All right, it's coming up and I have mouse control. All right, we are currently running at 45.24 megahertz. I guess 45-ish is where this computer likes to sit, and that's a shame. I mean, it's kind of luck of the draw, and every little detail about this board could be the culprit slowing it down. I mean, even that weird bodge that I had to make for that capacitor, maybe that is interfering with the system enough that it just prevents it from going to those very highest speeds. But let's see if we can actually restart into PowerPC, because honestly, that's the most important thing to me. Okay, well, it would appear that the PowerPC chip is the limiting factor in this machine, and I say limiting, but it's not really that limited. If I set it to anything above 86.25 megahertz, it won't boot, but I mean, that is still pretty darn fast. Not the 100 I was hoping for, and certainly not the fastest possible Mystic Color Classic PowerPC, but I'm happy with that. Okay, just look at these scores. With the stock 040 being the standard Mystic Color Classic, which is already an order of magnitude faster than the stock 030 Color Classic, the spicy 601 overclocked PowerPC is 297% the speed of the stock 040, and in floating point, that's even crazier. Let's zoom out a little bit. Yeah, 1,223% the floating point performance of the stock 040 system, the 33 megahertz 040. But yeah, you know what we have to do. We have to look at some games. Hang on to your helmet. Oh wow, that started way faster. Oh yeah, look at this. That's a frame rate right there. Oh my god, it's playable. Oh, it's much, much better. It was unplayable before. I'm not going to say this is fast, but it's playable. Look at that. Oh no, I'm upside down. Flip me back over. Oh, this is so exciting. This is worth the whole thing. Look at this. Really? You're going to leave me upside down? Come on. All right, and boot it back into 68K mode so we can check out our other two games here. Oh yeah. Well, it's much, much better. Although this game is notoriously poorly optimized, I do wonder if it would still run better in PowerPC mode. Okay, this is much faster. This is a much better optimized game. Oh yeah. Excellent. Okay, so this is the big test here. And oh, it's much, much better, even with all these things happening on screen at once. Yeah, Duke is playable. I mean, I'm still gonna die, obviously. Okay, so that'll do it for this extreme overclocking of our Power Mystic Color Classic. And thank you so much, K-Koba and Steven Arsenault, for making this magical spicy o'clock device. And thank you, K, for sending me two. I mean, I paid him for them, but still, thank you. I've wanted to build a Mystic Macintosh for so long, since I was a teenager. I've been trying to collect parts for this. That LC575 that I had that donated parts to this, you know, I rescued that from my mom's basement. Just to have this machine at this level of being upgraded is amazing. And it's so versatile now in such a small package. It can run 68K software natively with the Overclock 68040, and it can run PowerPC software natively using its now overclocked PowerPC 601 processor, and I can switch back and forth, and I can fine-tune the clock speed to get the best possible performance. I can play Carmageddon on this thing, on this tiny, beautiful Trinitron screen. It's so cool. I think the next steps for this machine, well, there is one more PowerPC upgrade that could push this even further. Towards the very end of Daystar's existence, they made a 100 megahertz accelerator for the LC575 motherboard. And after Daystar went under, Sonnet produced it for a short time under the name Sonnet Presto PPC 604. I don't know why they call it 604. It's a 601, but still. That upgrade is probably nearly impossible to find, but I'm gonna keep my eye out because that would make this the ultimate machine, and I'm really curious to know, can that card overclock over 100 megahertz? And yeah, because I think that card runs 3x the processor speed instead of 2x like this one, so maybe this can actually be modified to do that? I don't know. But still, can you imagine this machine with a PowerPC processor over 100 megahertz? But that'll do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more Macintosh shenanigans like this, please subscribe down below. And thank you very much for watching. And a special thanks to Alberto Guerre, Camila Noceda, Chris Allegretta, Chris Briggs, Chris Calderon, Chris Nelson, Cobalt Retrotech, Control-Alt-Reese, Daniel Hubbard, Greg from Hrut K Mods, Paul Spencer, Ryan, Scott Thompson, and Sutek, who are my highest tiered patrons and all of my Patreon supporters for helping to make these videos possible.